All right, we're live. Did you get a haircut, or am I just so used to seeing you in a hat that this is unusual?
Yeah, I got a haircut maybe like a week ago.
Yeah, you look good. You look sharp. You look well
Thanks.
turned out.
For my real job, I have to be on camera a lot, so I have to look
What's your
somewhat
real job?
presentable.
You're like an engineer or something, is it?
Development team lead. Yeah, IT, lots of fun.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's like a
Yeah.
software engineer kind of.
Yeah.
And what is it, like a startup, or is it like a big company, or?
No, it's we're owned by a telco, so like a phone company. They own
Okay.
a healthcare kind of side of things, and yeah, that's where I'm at. So.
And do you have to give like videos of like, hey, this is how you use this, guys. You need to click this and then do this.
No, we're not client facing. Yeah, we're all internal, so it's more so just planning and meetings within our teams.
I know a guy that does kind of calls like that for Microsoft.
Oh, okay, nice.
Like, I don't think maybe it is. I think it's with like groups. Oh God, I should probably know this. Like one of my best friends, and I don't have a clue what he does for his job. But I think it's like groups. So say if a company is using Microsoft for something, he has a call with like the company on how to use it.
On how to use it. So he's more like on the training side of things.
Yeah. I gather he's well remunerated for his frustrations that he sits through.
Oh, I'm sure. And working for Microsoft, they make good money. So
yeah, make better money than me anyway. So what are your working hours with that then?
Just like your standard 9 to 5, 8 to 4. It's fairly flexible in terms of the working hours. Everything's remote for the most part, so there's a benefit to that. But yeah, like your standard day job.
So is it like, did you work from home or from there?
I work from home. Yeah.
Okay, so is it a case that like once you get the boxes ticked that you need to tick by 5 p.m., it's fine? Or do you have because there's some companies like monitor how active your keyboard is and all that kind of shit? Like,
yeah, no, there's none of that. At least not that I'm aware of. But yeah, like my role specifically, I'm kind of always need to be available to the team if anything were to come up and happen. So yeah, between those hours, like generally we have our team meetings throughout the morning and planning sessions. And in the afternoon, there's a little more flexibility, but it's more of a support role at that point in time.
And have you one kid, two kids?
One.
Yeah. And what age are they? Boy or girl?
A girl. She's 2.5. She's actually home right now. She's been battling a bit of a virus this week, so double duty.
Yeah, like it's kind of. So you're not at work now, then?
Yeah, technically.
Whoever's monitoring your keyboard better not flick on YouTube.
The computer's right
here. So that's pretty intense then. So like if you have even a regular like job, and then you have a kid as well, and like like kids are cute and all, but like anywhere within that 2 to 4 age range is like quite intense.
Oh, yeah.
When do you do like programming, and when do you do like when do you sit? Do you have like say, every Sunday I sit down for like 4 hours and go through the following 2 weeks or whatever?
Yeah. So with my individual athletes, so Emma and Jack currently, it's kind of like a daily thing. So I'll spend time every day building out either parts of their upcoming week or current week, or making changes to kind of a plan that's in place. And then for the more templated programs, I allocate, like a day, usually on the weekend, like 5 or 6 hours to kind of go through those and make sure the next week or 2 weeks is ready to go. So yeah, it's a lot.
How many like remote users does Mammoth have? Do you know?
Right now we're probably sitting around like 125, 130, which for me right now is good. Like I'm not, again, like I'm trying to balance obviously being a father and a husband and having a job and making sure. Yeah. So again, like obviously there's aspirations that like I'd like it to grow and be this huge thing. At the same time, I need to make sure that like I'm not biting off more than I can more than I can chew right now. And then my priority in terms of like coaching obviously always goes to Emma and Jack first. And then dealing with the other stuff. So
although I think from here on out, 2024 will be remembered as the year of YOLO Folo.
YOLO Folo, yeah. Erica, she had a great.
I just love that so much. I love that YOLO Folo.
That's good.
We'll chat about the athletes a bit and stuff. Obviously, what is it? Am I right in saying that you were originally coaching in an affiliate, and Emma was a member in that affiliate, and you just kind of helped her a bit, and then it blossomed? Is that an accurate kind of assessment?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I was a coach there. She was still, I guess, 13 or 12. No, she'd have been 13. And she did the Open, even though she was too young to do it, and did very, very well. And I just jokingly made a comment to her saying, hey, like, if you want to do this full time, like I'll coach you. And I've never had an individual athlete or anything. And then I guess she went home and told her parents that and said that she wanted to do it. And her mom was a big dance mom. So Emma was into dance pretty competitively. So I don't think her mom was super thrilled with that. But things kind of worked out, I think. So.
Wow, her mom was a dance mom. When she was 13, she went and said, okay, I want to do this full time. I want to train. I want to get really into it. Not like a career, I guess, but.
Yeah, I don't think she really fully understood, or neither did I at that point in time, like what a career in the sport would really look like. I think it was more so, hey, like, pretty good at this. I'd like to go to the games as a teen. Like, let's kind of see what happens. And then, it's just really grown from there. There's been a lot of learning, a lot of, lessons learned the hard way sometimes, a lot of, experimenting and seeing what works. And again, it's been quite the road to this point.
Do you think it made it easier for you, the fact that she was like a teenager at your first experience of that competition was at the teenage games, not at like the CrossFit, like the elite level CrossFit, that you were able to come up with her like almost through the ranks, as opposed to like, it might be a bit overawing to just land at the CrossFit games with an athlete of her caliber?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped, like having kind of that progression through the teen years. And, there's obviously pressure at those years as well, but it's kind of a different pressure. Like they're obviously great athletes in the teenage division, but they're not making a living as a teenager doing this, right? Like they're kind of running off mom and dad's dime. And so again, we were able to kind of foster a good, athlete coach relationship through those years. And then again, make, good progress in terms of her athletic development, and kind of understanding the ins and outs of the sport and, the importance of having training plan and sticking to that and making sure you're not kind of overdoing it, which is tough to do, like, especially with a young athlete. Like a lot of them think at least is that, more is better. And generally that's not the case. Because even though they're young and recover quickly, like burnout's a real thing. So,
CrossFit says, I really wish this guy was calmer. He's really intimidating. Yeah, I think I said that to you. We were doing one of the press conference things, and I said the least enthusiastic man in CrossFit. But you're just incredibly measured.
I just try to. I mean, like, there's so much stress and anxiety and energy in the world. Like, I don't know. I like to keep things kind of even keel. And even when we're in competitive environments, like, I don't need to add, additional stress to my athletes by being, super, I guess, I don't want to say like I'm not being positive. I'm definitely positive, but I definitely want to be that calm, kind of person that they can come to if they're feeling overwhelmed or whatnot, and not add to that stress, right? So I think I just carry that over into a lot of things in my life. Is that
do you ever use it then as like if you never do it, the time that you do it could have a huge impact. Like, as in, like, say Jack's about to go out and do a workout, or Emma's about to go out and do a workout, and you say, "Oh, I've been so calm and measured for the last 4 years that if I really fucking amp them up for this, they could beat everyone."
Yes and no. Like, I think there was only one time that I can recall in recent times with Emma at the games last year before they went into that down and back kind of workout, the interval one, which was like the row, the box jump over. And like, I knew as soon as that workout was announced that like she had a chance to win that one. And I was kind of a little amped up before that one. I said, you know what, just like go burn it down. Right. And I think, I don't think it really threw her off or anything or made her more amped up, but that was probably like the most that I've been kind of like, go do something out there. Right.
Is that just word choice, or does your tone change? Like, are you like poking her in the shoulder or something, or like, is it just the choice of words that you make? Are you like, did you deliver it in the tone that you just delivered it to me? Because if you delivered it to me, I'd be like,
no, I was a little bit more. I think I was a little bit more fired up than that. And the word choice. Like, again, I don't generally tell them to, kick everyone's ass or anything like that. But in that kind of moment, I may have kind of led that way a little bit.
Where do you think the difference lies between girls and guys when it comes to making the leap from the teenage division to the elite division? Like, you look at Dallin Pepper, took a few years. James Sprague took a few years. Like Tudor Magda, they're all taking time about adjusting and moving over. Guy, like, there's loads of examples on the guy side. On the female side, it seems to be that they age out and immediately just enter the elite field.
Yeah. I don't want to say that like the fields are less or not equally competitive. Like, I definitely think they are. I think perhaps with kind of Emma's cohort and then the year before her and maybe the year or two after her, we saw that. And I don't know if we'll continue to see that pattern on the female side. I think that those athletes that made it were unique and a bit of an outlier in terms of how things happened. Obviously, like, they were extremely talented, but they also worked extremely, extremely hard. I'm not saying that other athletes aren't. I just think now that the field is becoming so competitive throughout, not just at the top, like 1 through 40 at the games, like, it's super, super competitive. It's going to be really challenging for a younger athlete to break in. I just don't think we'll see it as much, if at all, kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I kind of had it down to like just biology that like girls finish maturing younger than guys finish maturing, or whatever. Like, guys are like, it's like 21, 22, isn't it? And girls are like 17, 18.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it from like the biological standpoint, right? Like, women are gonna go through puberty and kind of finish that earlier on, and so develop that strength that they need to compete at that higher level earlier on. And then guys are a little bit later bloomers, so they may need those couple extra years after the teenage division. But I mean, there's still some of those teen guys are still throwing up huge weight, right? Like, the strength is there. So again, it's hard to say if it's purely a biological thing. Like, it could have just been the right time for those girls to make it in. And maybe if you take them, 10 years down the line from now, like, maybe they wouldn't make it in, even if everything else was still the same. So I think there's just a multitude of factors, and we can't really pinpoint, exactly why it happened.
They'll probably always be out, like you have like Lucy McGonigal now next. Like, there's always going to be outliers, but I do think it will increasingly become harder. It's probably just the female field is probably lagging. Maybe it's not, I don't know, but maybe lagging behind the male field in terms of depth of field for
overall,
as in like the guys' field was deeper for the last 5 years in the female field has been just because of early adoption or whatever. Or guys tend to be better at throwing themselves into like, yeah, fuck it, I'll compete, see what happens. Do you know what I mean? Whereas generally speaking, females tend to be a bit more pulled back from that kind of stuff. He said to get himself cancelled.
We'll see the comments start coming in.
When you were coaching in that gym, then were you working full time as well?
My role was different back then, but I was still working at the same company. So yeah, I was coaching, a few nights a week, just classes, and then obviously started working with Emma. That became more of my priority. I actually cut down some of the hours that I was coaching at the gym to spend more one-on-one time with her, and really kind of focus in on movement quality, and making sure that we were kind of, in my opinion, hitting the important things first and getting a really good pattern developed before moving into all the fancy things, like gymnastic, ring muscle ups, bar muscle ups, and whatnot. So I think a lot of that time spent was really well worth it. And, Emma's a pretty decent mover when we watch her move on the floor. And again, I do attribute a lot of that to the time we spent kind of in the beginning setting that foundation.
Why were you doing coaching? So if you already had a career, why were you doing coaching? Did you just discover CrossFit and like it? Did you like the coaching aspect? Had you coached other things before?
So growing up, I was a hockey player, traditional Canadian boy playing hockey. I played varsity at the University of Waterloo, where I studied health sciences. And then when I graduated, I finished playing hockey at that point in time. Wanted to stay in something competitive. Ended up seeing the one event at the games on ESPN. I think it was the Camp Pendleton one, where they were running through the mountains way back when. I was just like Rich or someone running. I was like, oh, what is this? Right? Like, this guy's jacked and running. And yeah. So anyway, I got into CrossFit there just to kind of keep my competitive juices going. And then from there, I got into coaching. It wasn't, and again, when I say coaching, like a lot of the gyms, at least back then, that I was kind of familiar with, like you would coach and that would kind of comp your membership, right? So you would coach a few classes a week, that would comp your membership. You're helping out the owners. So it wasn't a career by any means. It was more so just an opportunity to be involved in that community. And so that's kind of how that went.
So your cheapness paid off with a career afterwards. Had you done the level 1 and then started coaching, or had you decided that you wanted to get involved and then did the level 1 or whatever? What was the timeline about it?
Yeah, so I started like competing, doing classes for probably a year or so. Okay. Got my level 1, and then started coaching from there. So it was just kind of that, general continuum of finding CrossFit, really enjoying it, wanting to be more involved, doing the L1, and then, finding a passion in coaching. Again, I really did enjoy doing the class coaching, but once I started working with Emma, and then Jack, like really enjoying the process of individual athlete development and kind of falling into the science and the nuances behind that. So I can't remember the last time actually.
How much exercise science is in health science? Any or none?
It's a mix. Like, it's pretty much as much as you want to make of it. So it's usually like 50-50 between the biological sciences and then health policy. And then if you want to minor in anything, you can, choose that route. So
when you started working with Emma, then did you have to like self-educate? Like how did you go about learning obviously you have the level 1, but like there's only so much in there, and then the rest of it, as in, like, I'm thinking of, for her, she's obviously going to be different than a regular class that you're coaching, because you're focusing on specific things. You're focusing on like progressions for one individual rather than a group or whatever. Like, how did you learn all that kind of stuff?
The internet's a great place. A lot of research on YouTube, a lot of watching what other athletes at that point in time were doing, looking at what Rich is doing, looking at what, Matt was doing, Tia was doing, like, what are these athletes doing that's making them so good? And then again, relying on my background in sport and understanding how training principles work and how things can be applied. And again, there was definitely some experimentation in terms of trying to figure out what worked best for Emma. But again, the information's out there. Like, if you take the time to research it and make sure that you're never getting to the point where you think you know everything, and constantly trying to learn, like, you're only setting yourself up, and I think your athletes up for success.
Have you done loads of courses and shit then since?
Yes.
Do you know how many?
No, a lot.
Like over like 12.
Yeah, probably.
Wow. And all different, like, so like strength ones, like all like different sections of the sport, we'll say.
Yeah, strength, like aerobic stuff. Right now I'm in a big like aerobic kick, getting more into like the science behind lactate threshold, and looking into what the Norwegian triathletes are doing, and trying to kind of understand how they've become so successful at their running game, and how we can carry that over to CrossFit, specifically helping out with some of the weaknesses that Jack is trying to clear up. And so again, really getting into the actual science behind it, not just the theoretical, okay, well, if we just run more, we're going to get better. It's like, no, like, we need to actually target your running at a specific pace to make sure that we're getting that physiological change that we're after.
Like, is stuff like that only transferable at that level, like at the games, that, as in, like, if you're lower than the games level, say, or aspiring games level, I'm guessing you have to be more of a generalist. So like allotting the time, or some kind of time domain that the fucking Swedish triathletes or whatever have for running practice. Like, Jack doesn't have that time for what he does now in the off season, I guess. But like pre-semifinals, he doesn't have that time to allocate to something like that. So how do you like not become over enthusiastic, like you said, on an aerobic kick? How do you not just be like, let's just do shitloads of running, and then like you neglect something else? Like, how do you balance it when the off season is such a finite amount of time in this sport?
Yeah. I mean, if we just stick with Jack specifically, like, we know Jack's super strong, right? And taking some time away from the barbell isn't going to hurt him. Like, and over the past few years, like, we've seen that his strength comes back really, really quickly. So again, not prioritizing that, and diving into his weaknesses more will have a better payoff in the long run. And again, like, by doing some of this testing that we're doing for his aerobic fitness, it allows to have more targeted, specific training. So we're not just throwing, okay, just go and run 10K today and run 10K tomorrow. It's like, no, like, we'll have targeted, specific training that we can measure and actually see the progress over time, and then reevaluate if we need to make changes. So again, that's at least my approach, my thought to it. I know Jack's definitely on board with it. He's very analytical in nature. So the more data you can give him, the happier he's going to be.
Is like, the way you're talking about it, is the elite sport, like, do you consider the elite sport CrossFit? Like, do you consider the sport of CrossFit to be CrossFit? Like, the fact that, like, say Seth here is saying you can also just run more. CrossFit Games athletes don't need to be elite runners. Like, are we getting to the point where you do, like, not elite, but like, you need to separate yourself from the rest of the field, or like work hard enough at it that you catch up to the rest of the field? So you need to be like an expert weightlifter, an expert. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I agree with what Seth's saying. Like, you don't necessarily need to be an elite runner, but we're not doing this testing just solely based on his running, right? Like, we're trying to develop a certain energy system and use that data to see if we are actually progressing in that direction. I don't want to say it's like super transferable to like your everyday athlete. It's definitely specific to what we're focusing on with him. So yeah, like, and then at the games level, like again, it is super, super tight. And so if you can get an advantage because of the style of training or the specificity that you put into measuring your training, if you can get that 2-second difference on your 5K, maybe that's 1 or 2 spots. And at the end of the weekend, maybe that's the difference between, you know, 4th place and 3rd place. Right. So at the top level, yeah, I do think that taking the investment in some of these things is, you know, if their goal is to be at the top, like it's necessary, right? It's not just about going in and just throwing volume anymore. Like you need to make sure you're doing things correctly, right? So like you said, there's only so much time in the year. There's only so much time in your training day. Like if your training isn't focused to your weaknesses, again, I think you're leaving a lot of potential out there.
Look at that. You passed the test. Good answer. With when you started coaching Emma then, so she was like 13, 14, did you catch any shit for that? Like, were people like, why is this guy hanging out with like a teenager? Or alternatively, were people like, you know, the way there's a lot of like, oh, you shouldn't be lifting that much weight, like if you're that young, and if you're, you know, like, did you have to defend yourself a lot, like in the early days?
There's always the odd person who like doesn't really know much about fitness, and they'll be like, oh, like I heard that you'll stunt their growth if they're lifting a bunch of weight. And like, if you look into any like research, like you're not going to stunt their growth if they're moving properly, and like we're not throwing max lifts at them every day, right? Like you need to make sure you're doing things properly. But again, most of the people who were kind of around us during those early years were all people at the gym. So they knew that she was super committed, talented. So again, we never really got any flack or anything like that.
What about her parents? Like you said that her mom, or her mum, sorry, that's very Irish of me. Her mum was a dance mom, and wasn't particularly keen at the start. Was there a noticeable shift? Like, are they like incredibly supportive? How quickly did they jump on board?
Yeah, no, it was very quick. Like they obviously just want to support their daughter on her goals and what she's, you know, chasing. So again, there was no real issues with that. It was just kind of a funny story that we always kind of bring up every once in a while. Because yeah, like Emma again was super involved in dance at a competitive level. Her mom was as well when she kind of grew up, and you know, yeah. So that's just kind of a funny story. But yeah, they're both super.
It's something that's not important, but you'll never let her forget.
That's right. Yes. Remember that time?
Yeah. Anytime she's like on a podium or anytime she's got a medal, like, you didn't want her to do this.
Yeah.
You've been against this from the start. Now look. With Emma then, you're so you did a vlog recently with Mammoth. Great way to blow up your subscribers or your views or whatever early doors. I'll give it a little like there. Look. You kind of did like a semi-finals kind of chat or whatever. It's actually really nice. Like it's a very digestible video. It's very well done. Like I don't know who made it. Who like records it?
So David, Training Day Media. So he does all of our stuff. From myself.
Oh, your stuff
Jack.
too. Okay.
Yeah. David's.
It's a very nice format. I like it because it's different. Like, I just like the fact that you're just kind of sitting, conversing in a car or whatever. And then Jack, like a dorky child sitting in the back as well. It's like, it's a nice touch that the camera pans to him every so often.
I was just happy that we didn't crash. Oh, there's my daughter right there. Werner.
Oh, she's cute. She's dressed as a tiger or a bear?
I think it's a bear costume, yeah.
But it was really good. Like, it's really well made. I really enjoyed it. In this, you talk about Emma and you talk about, you know, the struggle of people want to go to Mammoth Training Methods on YouTube. They can find it. you talk about the struggle of the sport basically, and that it's like it's a tricky balancing act basically. And I guess it's been well publicized over the last 18 months or whatever, or maybe 2 years. You go back to like Haley Adams, then it was like this bizarre like domino effect where it was almost like everyone, from my perspective, it looked like everyone was just kind of like, no, I'm fine. And then once one person said, no, I'm not fine, a lot of other dominoes started falling, and people were like, shit, am I fine? And like started questioning, like maybe I'm projecting or whatever. But that's what it seemed like was happening, that people started having conversations that they weren't having, or having thoughts that they hadn't been having, and then realize like, oh shit, I'm like that, or I feel the same way that that person feels. Is that not normal to feel that way or whatever? Again, why do so many teenagers make it into the female side quicker than the male side? Why has this affected the female side so much more than the male side, do you think? This like questioning of things, or like backing out, or is it like again a biological thing, like a brain chemistry thing, that they're more open to talking about feelings or whatever?
I don't know if it's that they're more open to talk about feelings. Like, we talked about, are the women making it in earlier because they mature quicker physically? Maybe they're more physically matured, but I don't know many 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are, mentally mature or emotionally mature at that age, right? That does take life experience and time. And, there's times where I don't think I'm fully there yet, right? And I got a kid and my wife and all this stuff. So again, I don't want to say there's necessarily I don't want to say the main reason's biological. Like there may be some, some factor there that's definitely contributing to it. Again, I just don't think that these young athletes are necessarily, when they're getting into the sport and they're having success, it's great, but success is one of those things that you have to continually battle and fight for. Like, it's not a given thing year after year. And it's a lot of commitment, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice. And again, like they're still, again, in my eyes, still children, but they're like, they haven't had necessarily those life experiences to fully make a decision that, yeah, this is 100% what I want to commit myself to, right? And when you're constantly just in a gym battling it out day after day, I think it's only natural to kind of think, hey, like, what are other kids my age doing? Like, what are they doing? Am I missing out on things? Is this worth it? And then again, like the impacts of social media, like I think I said in that vlog that, the analysts, and I don't want to say the analysts are bad. Like, I know analysts are great. Like they give tons of information to people, into the community. But like these young athletes, I think, are very impacted by what other people think. Like, I don't think they've necessarily developed that thick skin to kind of let what others say, what others think, not affect them. And even adults are, impacted by that. But especially at this young age, I feel like that's something that can weigh heavily on them. And then just that built up expectation of what others think they should do. And, is it possible to do that? I'm not going to speak, on the things that were impacting Emma, but a lot of it was, performance based, and can she replicate the year she had before? Like, is that the only thing that provides worth is her spot where she finishes, right? So again, that's one of the things that we've been dealing with this year, and just making sure that we have the proper support in place and seeking help, right? Like I can't pretend to, I can imagine what she feels, but again, I'm biased because I'm her coach, and we've developed a friendship with the family and stuff, and so I want what's best for her. So again, like I can't just be like, oh, like you'll be okay. It's like, well, no, let's find someone who's actually educated and trained in dealing with these things. and talk with them, right? And so again, it's just one of those things that I think will be continually an ongoing thing with these young athletes, and just ensuring that they're open to getting help. Because talking to someone isn't, you're not like a mentally ill person if you go and talk to a psychiatrist. Like there's nothing, or a therapist, there's nothing wrong with seeking help, and getting some insight into, hey, like, are there some underlying reasons as to why you're feeling this way? Here are some suggestions that I can give you to kind of help deal with your thoughts when you're going through stuff like that, right? And again, I think the more people are open to kind of talk about that, the better they're gonna feel in the long run, and hopefully, again, we can kind of stop this trend that we're seeing and kind of eliminate that. So, anyway, that's my thought on it.
What's Jack like with it? Like, does he, as in for himself, is he irked by predictions or by analysis of performance, or does he maybe not feel the same amount of pressure because he hasn't yet reached the height that Emma has, having, like, she was a multi-year teenage champion and then has podiumed and rookie of the year, all that other stuff? Is that the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm sure there's a little bit of a difference there. Like, again, Jack handles things a little bit differently. I don't want to say
seems very stoic. Is that like outward facing, or is he actually that stoic?
No, he's pretty stoic like that.
Okay.
Again, he's very analytical, and I would say like he looks more so at the numbers rather than having an emotional response to things. So if I'm going to compare him to like any athlete, like he'd be more like a Brent Fikowski, right? Like very calculated, wants to have the data. And again, if the data is in line with how he's feeling, then awesome. If it's not, then it's like, okay, well, how do we fix that? Right. So I'm sure at some level, like there's some impact when people think that he should have a certain performance, and either he, overperforms or underperforms. Again, like we're all human, so I think we'll have a little bit of impact there. But I think for the most part, he's pretty, unbothered by what others kind of think. I don't know, Jack. If you're listening, you can make a comment.
You can send in crying face emojis or something to let us know. With Emma, then, so like I remember at the time when Mal kind of pulled out or whatever, and there was a lot of talk about like how she had been all in and had moved to Vermont, and it was just a kind of intense environment, like, because you're moving to do that thing and that's what you're there for, and you're just kind of like, you see how different Hopper is when he moved back to be around his family and friends and stuff. He's a totally different athlete. Like, he's freer and he's like seems to be having more fun and stuff. And then Mal kind of didn't get to do that. I guess she kind of stayed there. And it's just very intense. And when she kind of announced she wasn't competing, like, I was, surprised or whatever, but I was also kind of like, yeah, like, I'd say it's pretty intense. Like, having that weight of expectation and the constant, like, well, if Tia wasn't there, Mal would win. And then it's like, well, Tia's not there, so Mal has to win. On top of the fact that you're there day by day, like, all in every day. Putting in your hard work that will pay off. Whereas I always thought with Emma, like, I never really saw that much of her, first of all, which I thought was a good sign, that I didn't see loads of like social media stuff from her. Just the obligatory, like, I don't know, who is she? Noble, like the obligatory Noble post or whatever. But I never really saw, she didn't seem that into it, which I thought was a good sign. But she also, like, she went to her prom and stuff, didn't she? Like, she did like normal, she seemed to have a decent balance all the way up. Is there, like, when you look back on it, are you like, oh, we could have handled things differently, we could have done that differently, we could have done, or do you think it's just one of those things that, like, regardless of what you did, it was going to happen, so you might as well get the most performance you can if it's going to happen anyway?
I mean, you can always look back and think, oh, was there things we could have done differently? I don't know, like, hindsight's 2020, but I think we did the right things last year, in training leading up to the games, and making sure that we were still finding balance. in her life. Yeah, like she went to prom. She, had a weekend away, probably a month out from the games, where she went with her friends, and kind of like a prom thing is they go camping or whatever. So they went and did that. So again, I think finding balance was super important. And maybe, well, I'm not gonna say maybe, like one of the things this year is like she doesn't have school, and that was a decision that she made. Like she wanted to spend more time focusing on being an athlete. But at the same time, we still wanted to make sure that we were having avenues to clear our mind outside of the gym, outside of the sport. Like find a hobby, do something that you enjoy doing. And so again, like I don't want to say that like the mental side of things was an inevitable outcome of the sport, and because I don't think it is. Again, I think it's very individual based, and it's one of those things that just it happens, and it can happen to anyone, right? Like for every athlete that we know it's happening to, I bet you there's 20 that's happening to that we have no idea. Right. Like I'm talking to other coaches from other camps, and their athletes are experiencing very similar things. Right. And it's out there, and it's just about a matter of how people can deal with that stuff. Yeah. And then again, certain athletes have been in more of a spotlight situation where it's shed more light kind of on
it. When you said that in the vlog, was there any trepidation about that going out? Like, was there any kind of talk of like, maybe we shouldn't say, like, because obviously there's two sides to it. Like one, like you say, you're talking to the coaches from other camps, and they're like, oh shit, I'm so glad you said that, because we've been having that same conversation, or that same thing happened, whatever. So like that's, a positive, I guess. But then the flip side of that is like, I don't think maybe it's not as cutthroat as I'm making it out, but that people be like, oh, there's blood in the water there. Emma's got like a weakness, or, like or like that it'll promote or give an opportunity for conversation about her maybe not having the fortitude to, challenge at the very top or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like that there could be a negative impact. There's a positive impact of saying it, but there's also a potential negative impact of it being public knowledge. Like, was there any kind of trepidation about saying it in the first place?
No, not really. Like, again, I don't think she's not ashamed of having to deal with like this stuff. Like she's not, embarrassed by it. One of her recent posts with Tupu, the belt company, was on the belt that she designed with them, and she kind of touches in on that stuff. And that actually came out prior to the vlog coming out. So like she was willing to share that information publicly. And in terms of like, other athletes thinking there's blood in the water, I mean, certain ones might think that, but I do think that a lot can be gained by these athletes sharing these thoughts and feelings that they're having with each other, and not necessarily looking at each other as competitors all the time. Like they're people who are going through similar things. And if, what you're experiencing something that I'm also experiencing, well, now I don't feel as isolated or alone. And hey, maybe, if I'm feeling this way on a certain day, I can reach out to you and you can kind of help me through it. Right. Like it's one thing for me or a parent to say something like, oh, you'll be okay. But when you have, a fellow athlete that at times you're competing against, who's also experiencing similar things, and they're kind of, supporting you through it, and you support them, I think it's only beneficial in terms of that.
Yeah. You mentioned in the vlog that there was kind of a question mark over the season, like, or it seems that there was a question mark over the season. Maybe how big of a question mark? Like, are we saying that at any point was it really on the table? Like, no, I think I'll just leave it this year, or was it just kind of thrown out there haphazardly?
I would say 2 weeks before quarterfinals, it was on the table to not happen.
Like a genuine, like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you just like, because obviously you've known her for a long time, you care about her like as a coach athlete, but also as like a family friend or whatever. Do you just say, okay, let me know? Because obviously you don't want to say like, yeah, you shouldn't, or no, you should. You can't, like, it's hard to give advice that way.
I just told her that I would support her in whatever decision she made, and she needed to make that decision for herself, and what she wanted to do. And again, there was no pressure from me to continue on or to not continue on. Like, make the decision that you're going to be confident and comfortable making. And again, I'll support you however you need me to. Right. Again, like I always, and I've told this to Emma and I've told this to Jack, like, you as a person is more important to me than you as an athlete. And I think that's one of the things that allows our relationship to be so strong, is that, again, I don't just look at them as an athlete or an asset. Like, they're friends, they're people that I care about. And again, I want what's best for them.
I'd just like to say fuck you to the guy who, when I was buying a heater for this new gym that I'm in, told me that the heater would not be large enough or powerful enough to heat the room that I'm sitting in.
Is it hot?
It is fucking roasting in here. I turned it on when I came back. I was at like camogie practice. It's kind of like lacrosse, with my daughter, and it was fucking freezing. So I turned the heat on, and now it's like a sweat box in here. So fuck you, guy who tried to upsell me. He was like, "Oh, you'll need 2 of them." I was like, "That's not what I need it for, though. It's a gym. Like, I just need to take the nip out of the air. That's all. I'm not like, yeah, take the edge off in the mornings or in the middle of fucking summer because we live in Ireland." With that question mark then being left on the table before quarterfinals, was it a case of like once the decision was made to continue, that was it? Or is there, like, are you having regular conversations? Obviously you're having regular conversations, but as in, is that coming up regularly of, you sure you're still okay? Like, or is it now that she's qualified for the games, is it kind of like, well, we'll keep going till August anyway, and then we can revisit it then? Or like, how do you not kind of hang around in limbo? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, again, it's her decision to make. And I think that the steps we took when it was at its worst, and the support that we got, has helped her put some tools in place to kind of help work on these things. And not saying that every day is going to be, sunshine and rainbows. Like, you're going to have challenging days. But again, like, it's just, I don't know, I'm just taking it a week at a time. I think she's taking it day by day. And again, we have discussions every day. And I'm not going to question how she's feeling. Like, if she wants to share with me how she's feeling, then we'll talk about it. But everything the past kind of week and a half since we've got back into training has been pointing in the right direction. So we'll keep rolling with it.
When you say at her worst, like, had she stopped? Like, had she stopped training, or was it just like worn out, or like fatigue? Like burnout kind of.
I wouldn't say it was burnout. And again, I won't get like too deep into it because it's her story to tell. But even just opening up the app that we use to do a little plug for Strivey.app. That's our programming platform. But even opening up that was
Beyond the
causing
Whiteboard
her
is also
anxiety,
available.
just seeing the yeah, you have to do that. I had to do that. Even just opening that up and seeing like her training for the day, like, would cause her anxiety. So there was a point in time where we were like, okay, you know what? Go into the gym and just do what you want to do. Right. Like, we're not going to program. I'm not going to program anything for you. If you want me to like shoot you some ideas, I will. But like, you've been doing this long enough that like you kind of have an idea, but just go do the things that you want to do. Like, go have some fun. Hey, you want to go into the bodybuilding side of the gym and just do some curls? Great. Like, go in and do that. Right. And so yeah, there was probably a week that we went through that, and then kind of got back into the flow of things, and the quarterfinals came and went, and she ended up winning quarterfinals, which was great. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. But yeah, it's just, it was definitely a challenging time at that period in time.
So if you want to win quarterfinals, curls and no
curls.
programming, that's the way to do it.
Basic.
Yeah. With semifinals then, so you had Emma, you had Jack, and you had Erica, you had YOLO Folo joining the ranks as well this year. So Erica had a great, she didn't qualify, but I mean, she announced herself at that level, which is important. And I'm sure qualifying would have been nicer. I'll just inform Heidi turns up late and then demands things. So this is Emma Lawson and Jack Farlow and YOLO Folo's coach, and he owns Mammoth Training Methods. Josh Woolley, sorry. Someone else asked earlier on, actually, just before I get on to Erica, where the fuck is the question? I'm not going to find it. Is it worth looking for? Was it as funny as I remember it being? I can't find it. Anyway, somebody asked, what happened to your other meme account? I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I can't find it, but I thought it was funny. Semifinals. So Erica, great. Obviously, there was disappointing moments for her, and I'm sure she had disappointments afterwards and a lot of proud moments or whatever. Emma made it through, brilliant. Jack, I think, was he expecting to get through? Were you expecting him to get through? It's obviously a deep field. But is there frustration there, or disappointment, or is it just a case of, all right, well, here's the numbers, Jack, we got work to do?
Yeah, I think him and I both had expectations I definitely had expectations that he would make it through. I know that field is deep, but at the same time, he's one of the guys that makes that field the way it is. We didn't have the performance on the first 2 days that we wanted, or we knew that his fitness level could provide. There was definitely some learning lessons that we've taken away after we've had some discussions in terms of lead up and recovery and things like that, that maybe weren't 100% correct. And again, we need to take those away as learning lessons and then kind of reevaluate and make sure that we are doing things correctly. Again, there was obviously a lot of disappointment with that, but I was super proud of how he came back on that last day. It would have been super easy just to kind of mail it in and just, not really give a fuck, right? And just, hey, well, there's 3 workouts, I'll just walk through them. But he battled back and had 2 5th-place finishes, and I think a top 10 in the other one, or an 11th. And made the significant jump up the leaderboard, and probably made a few people who were on the cut line, not make it in because of some of those performances, right? So it was definitely upsetting, because I feel like his fitness level and the things that he put, the effort that he put in this year and the focus that he put in this year, just they weren't displayed on those first 2 days. And sometimes that's just how the sport goes, right? And when we talked about it in that vlog, is that the reality of it in CrossFit and the way the season is right now is you have 1 weekend to be at your best to qualify for the games. And if you have a bad weekend or a bad day, and especially in a field like the East, you might not be making it, right? So again, just lessons learned there for sure.
It's obviously shit for Jack, but is there positives there for, selfishly, for you or for Emma, where she gets, obviously you're still programming for the others, but she gets 100% of the game's attention, and you can kind of use Jack as a guinea pig to push her in certain things, and you know what I mean, all the that everybody's focused on her now, so it makes your job easier. Like, it's obviously more exciting when you have Jack there too at the games, and it's great. Like, but now it's kind of like was it stressful last year having the two of them and going from like pillar to post? I think did Jack have his
This is first
brother or something? Or did he have someone with him or something?
His brother-in-law takes his coaching pass, so he helps.
Okay,
Like he'll help with the behind the scenes stuff at events.
he carries his bag. You can say he carries his bag. It's fine.
He carries his bag.
But like, do you think like, are you like, will this year be easier? Do you think that you just have her and like 100% focus?
I don't say be easier. It'll be different, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would. Again, I'm super proud that Emma made it and stuff like that, but I would love to have, Jack and Erica also at the games. Like, I don't want to say, oh, it's going to be easier because now I can just focus on Emma. Like, it might take might give me a little bit more time back in my life, not having to, program for 3 games athletes, but, I'd much rather them all be together training and preparing for the games. And I think, Emma, Jack, and Erica would also prefer that as well. But the reality is there's only so many qualifying spots. And again, this is the way it shook out this year.
With Erica and Jack, then, is it basically like, do you plan the off season? Do you sit down and say, all right, I want you guys to do Rogue and I want you to do whatever? Or do they say, because like Jack did Rogue last year, didn't he? And then he did Whataburger? Or was Rogue the year before?
So Jack did Whataburger last year, and the year before that he did Rogue.
Okay. Right. And does he decide, or do you decide, or do you just say, okay, you get 2 or you get 1 or whatever? How does it work?
Yeah. So Jack and I, like, we had our kind of post semifinal meeting and kind of planned out what he would like his off season and next season to look like. Again, things are a bit unique with Jack because he is a full-time student. He actually may be heading off to New York for a co-op for 3 months. So again, like, he's a busy guy. So things are a little bit different with planning things out for him. But yeah, a lot of it is, discussion on the pros and cons of, well, if we add this event in that you want to do, like, what impact is that going to have elsewhere? And so we just make sure that we can find a good balance with that. At the same time, like, one of the things we discussed is maybe some more reps in a competitive environment might be better, right? So having a little bit more experience on the floor and not just kind of leaving it until semifinals may be beneficial, right? So, hey, if we can get into 2 or 3 kind of events leading up, that might be a better approach. So again, those are things we're looking at with Jack. Erica's a different situation. So Erica is the fruit of the Mammoth Elite program, right? So she followed that template program this past year. So that thing kicked off in August or September, and she followed it from then until semifinals. Again, she had the benefit of knowing me personally, so there was that connection there. But she had a coach, like a specific person who was acting as her coach, just not programming for her. Mm-hmm. So that's how that kind of worked out. There is some stuff in the works. Nothing's been solidified yet, but we may see some growth within Mammoth in terms of another coach, possibly. So, yeah. So again, things will be announced when things are solidified there. But again, things could be growing. So,
another thing you said it to me. Oh, I actually can't remember where. It might have been a Fit Fest, or it could have been on a call. I can't remember. But you said that. I remember you saying, like, "Oh, I have a full-time job. Don't really want this to be that big of a thing. Like, it's nice for it to grow, but like, I don't want it to get so out of control or whatever. Like, because I have a job." And I said, like, would you not just quit, like, quit your job and do this instead? And you were kind of saying how, like, yeah, but wife and kid. Doesn't make it easier to be like, I have no pension anymore. Is that, like, do you have aspirations at all to do that? Like, to have like a Mammoth training methods camp, like, of like a stable of like 5, 6 athletes or whatever, and 3 or 4 coaches, and someone doing the overseeing the elite track, and someone overseeing the everyday track, and you can focus on the game stuff. Like, is that something that you're interested in or no?
Yep, 100%. That's the direction that I definitely want to see things going and growing. With what I currently am offering now, like my time is stretched super, super thin. And again, so I don't think personally that I can take on any more like individual athletes or programming. And in terms of individual athletes, like my commitment has always been to Emma and Jack, and that'll maintain or remain that way until they decide that they no longer want to do that, or no longer want to do that with me. And again, that's hopefully never happens. But yeah, so again, if I can bring on another couple coaches and possibly they bring in individual athletes as well, we can create that stable and kind of follow along the lines of how Training Think Tank has done things. Like Max has done a great job with that, and TTT, and how they've grown. And again, I've developed relationships with them. And so yeah, that's kind of my hope. That's my plan, at least.
Would that lead you to like quitting or no? Like your actual job, or no? Or just going like secondment or something?
Depends if someone from my job is watching right now. I don't know. Again, like it would have to be. Again, the thing that's holding me back right now is the fact that like my job is very secure. It provides me with like my family with benefits and that pension. So those are two things that are hard to give up. My wife is an optometrist, so she's a contractor, so she doesn't get any of those benefits. So then if I don't have any of those benefits, then everything comes out of pocket. Which, I mean, if we only have one kid, is probably okay, but at the same time, it's nice to have that security in the event that you need it, right? Like if you don't need it, awesome, but when you do need it, like again, hopefully nothing ever happens that we need something like that, but the security of having it is obviously super, super important. So it would be a big decision at that point in time.
I guess the only thing is, if you're starting the company yourself, you could just funnel the majority of funds towards a pension. Like just make sure that the CEO gets like insane benefits, and then like don't worry guys, a couple of years you'll be included in this too. You get full medical, dental, all that shit. But for now, for me to make this viable, fuck you guys. Everything's going to me. Yeah, because when you're in charge, you can just decide where everything goes. So it's perfect. It's easy. Okay, so the games then, obviously it's changing to Texas. So like blank slate, I guess. It's like it's totally changed. What was conceivably possible before is now maybe some of it is no longer possible. Some of it is like, oh, they'll have to do that differently if they're doing it. Do you put much thought into that kind of stuff? Like, are you like thinking, okay, well, if it's all going to be indoors, so they're probably not going to do this, this, and this, and okay, well, if they do something, they'll have to do crazy early in the morning. So maybe I should get Emma to do some stuff crazy early in the morning, or more stuff in a pool because it's going to have to be in a pool if there's a swim, or maybe they'll have to go back to like classic CrossFit stuff because they're going to be refined to this area. Or is there a danger of like thinking about it so much that you end up like missing something, or like kind of pigeonholing yourself too much?
Yeah, few thoughts on that. So like with the information that's been kind of shared so far, the majority of the stuff is going to be inside, which with the heat down there, again, the athlete safety is important. I'm pretty sure Dave said recently that like, don't be surprised if the floor has completely changed more than like we're used to overnight, right? So I think they can definitely be creative. Like that's a really big venue. So we'll probably see some creative setups. I think he also mentioned that, it's going to be kind of a return to more of the classic CrossFit that we may have seen, prior to like 2017. So again, that's helps dictate some of the programming. You always want to touch on some of the unique things that we've seen at the games in years past. But I don't think you necessarily want to overdo it on them, right? Like the handstand push-ups on the rings, right? Like those showed up the one year. Had anyone actually practiced those up to that point? Probably not, or very, very few. Are we going to do those once a week? Probably not, but will we touch on them a couple times to make sure that, hey, like if they do show up, we can do them? Yes. But again, like there's always something that's going to show up that is going to catch majority of the field by surprise. And that's kind of the beauty of the sport side of CrossFit, is that unknown and unknowable, right? So, yeah, I mean, you can definitely overanalyze things and try to get super detailed and, think you have it all figured out. And again, I'd rather just make sure that the athletes are well-rounded and just generally prepared. And when they go up, like their athleticism will allow them to figure things out that maybe they weren't 100% ready for. They'll have the athletic ability to kind of figure it on the fly.
I was watching Chase and Bill last night. We're talking about that preparing for the games, everybody should be doing hangs and holds and L-sits, like all the time, like not all the time, but like they should be doing a lot of that because of the transference to other things. Would you agree with that? Would you think that's a sensible outlook?
Yeah, like hangs and holds, all that isometric strength development, super good. The L-sit thing is unique because it's definitely transferable to a lot of different things within the sport when you really look at it. Yeah, so again, like there's definitely value to doing a lot of that and just making sure that, again, you're prepared if those things were to show up. The one year they did have the L-sit at the games, right? Last year, the year before, the teams had strict ring muscle ups from the floor in an L-sit
they were low,
position. Yeah. The seated legless rope climb, like I believe the first iteration of it was meant to be in an L-sit position or a V-sit position, right? So, when we look at the rope climb, it's not the legless rope climb isn't probably like the top item. It would be like the L-sit or V-sit legless rope climb for the entire duration of the rope climb. So again, there's definitely value in what they're saying.
Do you kind of avoid putting like aspirations on the game season now with Emma? Like, are you kind of more... Well, you don't really strike me as the type that would have done it previously anyway. Like would have said, like, right, here's where I think we can finish. You don't seem like the jittery type that would do that. But do you avoid it completely now? Like, are you just like, let's just go and give it socks kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I've always shared with her and with my other athletes, like, as long as you feel like you've gone out and executed to the best of your ability at that moment in time, like I'm going to be super proud of the outcome and you should be super proud of the outcome, right? Especially on the individual side, like there's not a lot you can do to impact another athlete's performance other than getting in their lane and pushing them out of the way or something like that. So you're as fit as you are when you show up, and then the rest of it's between the ears. And again, just go out and do your best. And again, whatever the outcome is, like as long as you feel like you've given it your best, then we're gonna be happy with that.
I'll just show people before we go. Is your child alone or is your wife there?
That's Jack. Oh, here. She's watching a show.
Here, physically in person. I was like, she has not interrupted you. My kid will be crawling all over me because I heard her cough a couple of times. And I was like, there's someone holding her back or she's doing something. Yeah.
No. I put on a show for her. She doesn't get a lot of TV time, so when she does get it, she.
What's she watching?
What is she watching right now? I think it's Paw Patrol.
Oh man, you need to get her on the Bluey train.
Well, we've watched the Bluey train too. When did we leave off? When they sold the house.
Oh, that was
And
yeah,
then
that was a hard that was a hard one to
you're
watch.
joking.
You know what's
That
so
was hard
bad?
for my wife.
This is maybe I shouldn't admit this out loud. That was the long episode, wasn't it? Wasn't that like 25 minutes or something? They're never that long. They're only like 10 minutes long. But our kids went to bed like Saturday evening. I said to my wife, "Oh, apparently the longer Bluey's on, so we should watch that with the kids like one of the days." we just said like, "Do you want to just watch it now?" So we just watched it on our own with no kids, and I fucking loved it.
It's a great show.
It's good though. Okay, so Mammoth, if you go to mammothtrainingmess.com, you can have so this Mammoth Herd Elite, that's what Erica Folo made the semi-finals on.
Yeah, right. We're going to change the name to Mammoth YOLO Folo.
I like it.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mammoth YOLO, the Mammoth Herd Competitor. Mammoth Engine. That's your aerobic bias coming out there. Mammoth Strength. So if you want to get as strong as Emma or Jack, that's how you do it. And the Instagram then is Mammoth Training Methods. All one word. There's Erica. Yeah, it's great, man. You've done really well. I'm really impressed. It's like a nice little crew you've got. Congrats on everything you've achieved. Oh, look, Augustus has a question. Although I actually think he's on Sentinel, so don't tempt him over too much. What's the difference between elite and competitor?
So the elite program again is so the elite program follows the CrossFit season specifically. So it kicks off usually a month or so after the games with a build. And then again, it follows the different stages of the season. It's meant for the athlete who has semifinal aspirations. So the volume, overall intensity is still a little bit higher. And the competitor program is just for kind of that everyday athlete who likes to throw down on weekends and in local comps and whatnot. But it's a structured training program, so it's planned out.
Do you ever look at other? Do you ever sign up for like free trials on other programming? No.
And I've had it. So I don't do that. I've had a few like people. So I can make an email when anyone signs up, and then it's like so and so at whatever trainingcamp.com. It's like use like your personal email address, man. Like, so I'll just like, hey, I noticed you signed up for this. Is there anything I can do for you?
Yeah, that's funny. I noticed you signed up for this, and I'm going to kick you off right now. This is like, no, I'm quitting my job and I'm coming over here instead. Listen, Josh, thanks very much for coming on. It's been really great. I hope your season goes well and your kid feels better. They're the two priorities, right?
Yes.